I know, I just, my second one today.
I just got for myself. I'm like, I almost didn't make it at all because it felt so good.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, yeah.
A little while.
Oh, we've got. We're unmuted.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Quigley.
Here.
Councilman Sachsenheimer.
Here.
Councilman Jackson is absent. Councilman Evans is absent. Councilman Wilson.
Present.
Councilman Quinn is absent. Councilwoman Russell. Councilwoman Campbell.
On Zoom. Oh, there she is.
Councilwoman Campbell, we couldn't hear you. You were muted.
Did you just unmute Sam? So
Here. There she is. All right, thank you. Do you have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Is there a second?
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Old business, discussion of Council Bill 23-27 regarding what it's all about is maintaining the easement area between your yard and the street, or in the back between your back fence and whatever easement might be there. We had our first reading at our last regular meeting. There was not a lot of discussion. You've had a chance to read it. Are there any questions or suggestions to amend?
That includes like the easement to Bermuda and Natural Bridge, correct? Or Larson Road? The easement on those?
The way I read it, the answer is yes.
Public,
Any
okay,
public right of way.
thank you.
What is, what's the utility company, Ameren, that used to do the clearing out of the back easement? They no longer do that?
And this addresses that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's the individual homeowners, and so, like one of our, I mean, we're at fault with it too, but in the back of us, there's a bush growing up the utility pole.
I can't imagine maintaining the utility pole itself, but I'll refer to
Well, no, they
Andy.
won't, they don't, but Beyond Housing, they've spoken, that I heard them say they don't do that anymore. So, it would be good to get an update from them to know what they don't do, so that we could move forward with that.
Well, my understanding of the way this reads, you're responsible for that easement to the center line of the easement.
Well,
So,
she's talking about in the back of your house where you
right,
Yeah, that's an
Right, the
easement,
back,
yeah.
so there's the easement between, like, there's 10 feet for utility. And so we are responsible.
Yeah.
And previous to the pandemic, they would come once a year or every other year and clear that out. They are upfront and saying they're not doing that anymore. So, do we need to hear that, have in writing what they do and what they don't? So, if you're approaching, addresses and, you know what I'm saying? They're still
Well, yeah,
thinking
what
they're
what they
doing it.
do and what they don't probably is irrelevant because this ordinance will dictate that the homeowner's responsible for
So
that.
then they would contact Ameren.
Right,
if- Got it,
and
got it.
their business will be between them and Ameren.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Tony, go ahead.
I had the same issue with Ameren, and that easement, what I was told is that I can put whatever I wanna put up there, I can put a retaining wall or whatever, but if they need to get back there, they'll tear that wall down. So, it's your responsibility, I mean,
I've heard that.
they're
too.
kinda loaning you the property, but if they wanna get back there, they gotta have a way to
So
get back
we-
there.
We're not just
we
talking
can-
about an easement for just wires that are running.
No.
Over your backyard, we're
The
talking about
pole,
an actual.
up to the pole.
10 feet, there's 10
Yeah.
feet
Yeah.
between
Okay, but
the
it's,
person in
From
back
your
of
property
you and
line to the
us,
pole.
that's theirs.
So
but is it,
that's already, I believe that's already covered by our ordinance.
That's what
Uh,
Marcus, so we're
But
okay.
this one is talking about right of way,
Mhm.
which is the road. So it's slightly.
In the back of your house?
well, the language does talk about public right of way or easement belonging to the city or any public entity.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's broad.
But.
Yeah, it should.
But in all this ordinance does is it would make it a municipal ordinance violation to not do that. So basically, we can give you a ticket for
That
not
easement.
taking care of that.
That easement, I agree.
So what we've done, we've kept our bushes down away from the wires. We've kept a walkway clear back there. And as, when they come previous, they were fine with what we did and they got in and that kind of thing. But they haven't done other, other people's and, so that, I mean, we'll just give it to the resident and they can call Ameren and they'll tell them what they told you and they told me and,
Yeah, because what I did, I put bushes up there and landscaping, and I just take care of it, it's only.
Yeah, and now it's gonna be mandatory that it's taken
Yeah.
care of by the adjoining property.
You know, let them weed whack it. Keep it off the fence line.
Any other questions? We're gonna have, did we have our first reading at the last meeting?
We did.
We'll have our second reading at the upcoming meeting then. This second item on the agenda is discussion of Council Bill 23-28. And this was the one that brought us into compliance with state, made our ordinance consistent with state statute. Any questions, please direct to Andy on this.
well, I did, now I can't. Never mind, because it's gonna happen anyway because it's
It's
the
already
state,
happened,
right?
right?
yeah.
It's just, our code will just reflect actual practice under state statute so that no one is confused when they look at the code and say, oh, well, why does that say 4.5%? Or why does it say 5%, but they pay 4.5, so it's just
Okay,
some, it's cosmetic almost, I
Yeah,
would say.
yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, that one's kind of a no,
Second
yeah,
reading is a meeting.
yeah, we'll have our second reading at the upcoming meeting. Third item on the agenda, discussion of Council Bill 23-29, and that amends our fiscal year budget, and you got a copy of it. And highlight, Sam, I'll let you go ahead and highlight.
Sure. Well, I didn't get too into the weeds at the first reading, because we kind of went off into the question about the request for an additional position. And I put together a job description for that. I want to focus on the budget amendment tonight, but if there's any questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer it. But hopefully the job description can kind of answer some of clarify some of the questions that were asked at the last meeting about the position. But the gist is, it's a part-time person in the office to just kind of do some of the receptionist and administrative assistant type work to just help us keep up on the.
Well, I have a
basic
question
stuff.
in regard, so if it's the assistant to Rick, it's gonna be muted by clerical. And so if we really need an
Well-
assistant to Rick,
So, yeah, and at the last meeting, I think I probably misspoke because I was not as prepared to go into the job description of this person as I was more just coming to ask for the money, so, or for the appropriation, so that we could talk about hiring this person. But in this job description, it's a little more clearly lined out. So this person has one supervisor, it's the city clerk, and they provide administrative support to the city clerk, but they're also the housing clerk, so they do things to help the code enforcement officer.
so the housing clerk then is assisting Rick then? So if he needs research on addresses and, does that go under housing clerk? Does everything he needs
It
that he's
could-
asking for go under housing clerk?
It could, yes, yes, I think
You know what
the
I mean?
main focus is gonna be, assisting mailing stuff out and generating, pre-form letters and things like that. But it could get into looking.
Oh, I got one. Yeah,
And it's-
I didn't have time to read it because we just came in.
Yeah.
I guess my concern is that it's gonna go back to the city assistants and not give Rick what he really needs in regards to the paperwork.
We
Well,
all
oh, go ahead,
assist
go
each
ahead.
other in the admin office, so, when it comes to handling occupancy permits or processing, Sam, myself, Bree, we all do that. So it's not gonna take away too much from, that being taken care of. More of having, like Rick's still gonna get what he needs, and we'll create processes for that. But
Do you understand what
that's-
I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Is that
understand,
this
but
could
what
be
I'm
really
saying is
muted
that
if-
that's not the only duties, because that's not all there is to fill a whole day.
Yeah,
So it's to,
We have a lot of projects to get done, and to your point, we're not gonna get them all done at the same time.
No.
And so, but just like, we could really improve the efficiency of code enforcement by having an administrative assistant. For that, we also have a lot of filing that, that me and Kiana both, and other people in office spend a lot of time on, so.
I hear you.
And just, coming to the window and picking up the phone when it rings, that as well. And so just having someone to kind of just be a receptionist and route stuff to the proper channels will save a lot, so.
If our budget allowed, we could make this a full-time position, we can't. We're
But
doing
it's a
what we
start,
can
you're
with what we have, right?
But you're saying it's a start.
Oh, yeah.
Because it,
Yeah, it'll be incredibly helpful.
One of the questions,
Go ahead.
that I had about the position is that if we could have like a more formal, I guess, like letter or reference from Rick stating exactly what it is that he needs, because I'm sure he is relaying that information, but just like an outline of what exactly he needs help with, just like to the council. Like, it's just it sounds so vague, and like it just sounds so vague, and we haven't heard directly from the horse's mouth, which is Rick. Does that make sense?
Well, you can get a copy, we'll make sure you get a copy of this because you're on Zoom and I can't show it to you. But all the administrative duties and the assist, go ahead, Sam.
And I emailed you, Councilman Campbell, when the meeting started. But if you look under, there's different sets of.
Oh, we got an
duties.
email. We got an email today.
When I realized you were attending Zoom, I shot you a quick email with the job description. But under housing clerk, those are the duties that are specific to code enforcement. So receive and process applications for occupancy permits, certificate of compliance inspections, and schedule inspections as needed. Assist the code enforcement officer in mailing notices of violation as directed. Assist the code enforcement officer in preparing other administrative forms, including but not limited to administrative search warrants, notice of violations, building permit cards, and invoices. So that is specific, that's the specific stuff that we're talking about.
And then that person would still be under public. No, the person wouldn't be under public works. The person would be under administration, correct? But Rick
Yeah.
would be under public works.
Yes,
And then the person would have two immediate supervisors.
no. So I said that at the last meeting, but again, I wasn't super prepared to talk about it, but this person is just gonna report to the city clerk.
Well, and I will say, a lot of us have to wear a lot of different hats in the front office. We have to go where we're needed. And this position's gonna be flexible enough that we can Kiana can delegate as she sees necessary.
All right, if there's no other questions about that, I'll get into the other parts of the budget amendment, because there's a lot there. Again, the money for the extra position is partly coming from an increased cost estimate that we received from USDA for their building permit. So that was a significant increase to our budget, over $70,000. And I think we received the cost estimate on like October 5th or something. So right after the budget year started, they received their cost estimate. It was significantly higher than I thought it was gonna be. And so, and I think that's a good way to use that money. So 10-4-20, you'll see an increase of $25,000. This was a grant that the police department got for body cameras and dash cameras for our traffic units. It's a $25,000 grant, so you'll see an increase on revenues for that, and you'll also see a corresponding increase in expenditures to make the purchase for the body cameras and the dash cams. Also, right next to that, you'll see that there was a decrease in the ARPA money for the budget, because at the time the budget was made, I thought we were gonna have some ARPA money left over, but when we talked with the accounting people, we actually spent it all, which is what we said we were gonna do in the 2023 budget. And so, that was just an error on my part. But we spent it according to how we said we were in the budget, and so there's no ARPA money, and so we're just adjusting for that. Also, there's if the council remembers, we got a grant from Missouri Department of Conservation for tree maintenance. And originally, when the budget was passed, I was under the impression that it wasn't a reimbursement grant. And so I didn't build it, and just from if it's a reimbursement grant, you need to budget for the revenue and the expenditure, whereas some grants, they'll just pay it outright. So nothing's really changing there, but the budget needs to reflect that we're receiving a reimbursement grant, and it didn't before.
Revenue and expenditure, okay.
Yeah, so you'll see an increase of $25,000.
What line is that?
10-4, yeah, 10-4-20. You'll see a $25,000 grant.
Yeah,
And there's actually multiple 10-4-20s, but the one that just says grant funds. That's $25,000, that's for trees. And then, in the public works budget, which is under hazardous tree, which is 10-792, you'll see a corresponding increase.
What page are you on?
right.
That's on 6 of 14.
Thank you.
I'm on two.
Hazardous trade. 10-792.
What was on 6?
10-792.
So,
Thank you.
and that doesn't really change the tree plan. It just needed to reflect that it's a reimbursement grant. Doesn't really change our plans or anything.
So 10792 is accurate then, you're saying?
Yeah. Beyond that, so there's the big reason for the budget amendment is dispersing the economic activity taxes from the TIF. So, right now it's projected that we'll get 42,000 going into the capital improvement fund, 450,000 going into the Parks and Stormwater Fund, and 450,000 going into economic development. So, most of the other budget changes revolve around that. So, we increased the amount that we're spending in the parks budget, pulling from the parks budget, and offsetting some of the public works salaries with that, because in the original budget plan, we had planned to do more, so basically a higher portion of the public works salaries will be paid from parks, to pay for the time that they spend in the parks. In the original budget, we had to move that down a little bit because we were actually draining our Parks and Stormwater Fund a little dry, but that's not an issue anymore.
What is the $42,000 going to? You said at the meeting and earlier today.
42,000 capital improvement.
Thank you.
The other big increase is because we're receiving a big windfall in the Economic Development Fund, we're allowed to spend 25% of that for salaries for economic development. So, we're increasing the transfer in from economic development to general fund for these salaries for economic development up, we're increasing at 68,000.
Okay,
So basically, my salary is being paid out of the economic development fund. And because of the increased money, we can go up, that threshold is a lot higher than it was before. And so that gets some more money into the general fund. Also, one other thing that we caught a break on is, there was a workers' compensation payroll audit, so they come in and they look at how many hours people actually worked and how much you paid them. And we came under on our audit, which means we get a refund. So it doesn't look at, it doesn't look at accident, it just looks straight at payroll. So because we were understaffed last year, we got a little bit refunded. So if you look at, especially in the police budget and in the public works budget, there's an $8,000 credit in the police budget, and I think there's even more in public works.
What page is that, Sam?
4 for the police budget, and that's 10605. And then for the public works budget, it was a $10,000 credit because they were even more understaffed, and that's 10705. So that just helps offset some of our costs this year.
so where's your salary coming from?
Essentially the economic development fund.
The 25% for salaries is just your salary?
Yeah. Well, salary and benefits, because total, it's bringing in we're transferring in 90,000. And so, essentially, beyond just what the grants are bringing in, there was, on the different departments, so with all the funds, this is what we're looking to do on the expenditure side. We already talked about the part-time clerk, in the police department, there's some small increases to, the vehicle budget, because we had a bad start to the year, just with some of our vehicle expenses, and I think we could end up going over by the end of the year, and then an increase to the overtime and wages budget, because especially with the overtime budget, I think we'll end up going over in the year. Remember, we started off cutting 3 positions, in the police
Yeah,
department,
But
so,
then you have overtime then,
yeah, exactly.
so.
And then in the courts,
What happened to the vehicle? Were we in some accidents or?
well, it had less to do with an accident and more because we're cash basis, we had some bills come due in early October when we were hoping that they would come due in the end of September. So, and that's just kind of something you have to deal with being, like, having cash
Vehicle
basis
bills,
accounting.
new vehicles,
Maintenance, and one of them was a moper maintenance. I mean, these officers do get into the minor accidents. I mean, they're driving around all day, and so,
yeah.
but nothing super serious. We didn't lose an entire vehicle or anything like that. In courts, there's a little bit increase to salaries.
What page are you on?
Court budget, I believe, is on page 5. There's an increase to salaries, to help account for, the raises that were given. I think that was last month, and,
Did Betty stay?
yes. And then, public works, transfer, so, I think I talked about everything in public works, where it looks like we're decreasing salaries, but really they're being transferred to parks. There's the workers' compensation credit, and there's the increase to the tree budget to account for the matching grant. And then in capital, and then I think the only other expenditure and the capital improvement fund, and that's on page 9, was an increase of $10,000 for the wind speed bumps, so. And that's the changes that are in this budget right now. Obviously, the big question, and I think we should not rush on this, but our fund balances in the Parks and Stormwater Fund and the Economic Development Fund are both going up by 400, are over 6 figures. So, yeah, the increased net change fund balance in the Parks and Stormwater is 434,000, and then Economic Development Fund is gonna be 371,000. So, there's a question of what do we do with that? I know we're gonna talk about the medians later on. I think that would be something to consider for the Economic Development Fund. And then for the Parks Fund, the Parks Board,
You gave an amount of money you didn't give originally. The
Well,
450,
so-
450.
those amounts are after the transfers that we talked about. So we're transferring in some of the parks,
Oh,
we're
I
transferring
see.
in more parks money into the general fund, and we're transferring more economic development money.
So when we talk about that, will we get a list of how we could spend the monies visually so we can,
Yeah, so with the parks fund, I would recommend completing the parks master plan, using some of the money to do that, and then spending it according to the plan. And then we're gonna talk about a project that we may wanna pursue with Economic Development Fund, that has to do with Natural Bridge medians tonight. Depending on if we do that or not, or if we have any left over, we can also consider creating a plan for economic development, and how we could use these monies towards that end. So, are there any questions or any concerns that,
so you're saying that these two projects would probably absorb all the money? Or
Not
then
necessarily.
when we complete them, we could see what's next?
no, the Parks Master Plan won't cost, it shouldn't cost that much, but it's going to identify the projects that we should spend the money on. The economic development, the medians, I don't know how much the medians are gonna cost yet, but we can save that for later, but as far as this budget amendment, it's not, it's just gonna leave those fund balances as is for now.
So when we do those projects, do you have to redo the budget again?
Yes, but it could be, I mean, we're talking about long range stuff here, so it could even be next budget year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to let that money sit there until we have a need. All right, we're gonna have our second reading on this at the next regular meeting. Is there any other questions? Because this can get real convoluted for the people sitting out in the audience. Any other questions on the budget amendment? Okay. Next item of business, Resolution 23-40, a resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri authorizing the city administrator to sell certain personal property in the City of Normandy. And Sam, again, I'll let you know, I'll let you go ahead and describe how you marketed these vehicles.
Sure. So, the city code says that the city administrator is responsible for selling personal property, but council needs to approve it. So we've sold some items on this website before. It's called Gov Deals, and it's used widely by municipalities in the region, municipalities across the country, school districts across the country, fire districts. And it is basically, it's like eBay, but the only people selling are political subdivisions across the country. And so I believe these three vehicles, they're old. They've been in our vehicle graveyard for a long time now, and it was time to get them sold. So we posted, I believe the auction was up for about a week and a half, and the amounts you see here are the amounts that we got. So these are the highest bidders. I don't know these people. They're responsible for picking it up.
It's as is, like,
As is where it is. So.
Any questions? My intention was not to save this for the meeting, but go ahead and get this resolution passed so we can.
so previous though, you've sold, why are we doing this now when previously you sold things?
Yeah, admittedly, I didn't realize in the code that you guys had to approve it by resolution.
Oh,
So,
okay,
but I came across that and I said, we need to start.
okay. Got it.
Yeah, they've already committed to buying these, so we can get this passed, they'll come get the cars. So is there a motion to adopt resolution number 23-40?
Motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item of business, discussion of Council Bill 23-30, an ordinance of the City of Normandy, Missouri, amending Chapter 110 of the Normandy City Code regarding parliamentary rules at city council meetings. Much of this we've discussed and already have become in agreement on. And by the way, you're not going to see Council Bill 2330 in your packet. It starts with the red highlighted.
Oh. I see now.
And this just puts into ordinance what we've already agreed to. I did have a concern that I wanted to ask Andy about. On the second page, paragraph F. Actually, it's paragraph 2 under F, interruptions. Every member desiring to speak, let's see, a member of the city council once recognized shall not be interrupted. And then it gives the unless. I'm concerned that, does the chair have the authority to limit debate? Because I don't want to put into the ordinance that filibusters are allowed, because somebody could filibuster a bill just by talking endlessly. Is that something that we can?
You're worried that not allowing an interruption?
Not allowing an interruption is in effect allowing a filibuster.
I'm not sure, Karen.
Somebody could
Well, I
talk
think this-
endlessly.
I don't think this precludes motions,
think you
properly
might have
made
a double
motions
pass.
to, bring the question to the floor, right? Or
And I
to call
thought-
the question. excuse me.
Right. If you
Yeah,
call
I
the
think
question
this is-
though, you go immediately to a vote. Where if one person talks and you call a question, we've only heard from one person. There's a motion, there's a second. One person takes a position on this bill and they talk for 10 minutes. And somebody gets tired of debate and says, I called the question, I call the question. So now we're voting and we've only heard from one person.
Well, I think there could still be a call to order, right? If they're not talking, if they're talking for 20, 30 minutes and it's all relevant. you
But
know.
yeah, but I'd like to be able to avoid that if we
Sure.
could. I think, I'm assuming everyone would like to avoid that. Can we take a motion to limit debate to so many minutes per person on any particular issue? Please, Sam.
I mean, I don't see why we couldn't. We can certainly write that in.
I would like to see it, that the council has the option of limiting debate with a motion and a second. Karen,
Could it
please.
just be 1 minute?
Well, sometimes
Per
that's
person?
on a complex issue, that might be
Yeah, you want a little
limited.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Sometimes it take a minute just to say your name.
Well, if the council has the option of limiting debate, I could even ask for a motion, I'm looking for a motion to limit debate to 2 minutes per council member, and if we had the authority to do that, I think it would be helpful.
I
Go
don't,
ahead,
I
Sam.
don't know
2
that,
minutes is a long time.
so the way I understand the interruption is if someone has the floor, you can't interrupt them. So, I mean, but you can make, there are certain motions you can make when someone has the floor. So,
Right, any motion, right, it's,
it's not saying you can't take the floor away from anybody, it's just saying if they have the floor, you can't just start talking.
It's a totally different idea, isn't it, than what you're talking?
Well, how would you stop them from talking? Unless you call
Right.
the question.
but I understand, you don't wanna
Yeah.
end the debate, you don't want the first person.
I don't want to
start
end the
talking,
debate when you've only heard from one
who's
person
against
for
the bill
5
to
or
just
6
start
minutes.
Talking,
Right,
and force somebody to call a question.
and then we're
force a vote
voting after
without a
hearing
debate.
only from one side of the debate.
I do think, right, I think the chair, so if somebody else wants to speak, then if Councilman A is going on and on and on and on, and Councilman B kind of raises their hand, I do think the chair has authority
To recognize.
say, to recognize, thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, Councilman A, we've heard enough of you, we recognize Councilman
So I can
B.
just declare their time
I think so.
expired?
I think you have the authority to run the meeting.
Okay,
You are the chair.
well, if that's your opinion, that's great,
Right.
then we're fine.
And I think you've been doing that, I think.
Yeah,
I
as
feel-
long as it's not used, as long as that power's not abused.
Not
to
abused, so
keep-
that we don't
so
hear
that- right, so
a
that other
valid,
people
a
aren't,
valid position
someone
from
who-
somebody, yeah.
Right, yeah, someone who you think's a
the
blowhard.
but the
you just
question
shut them
is-
down every single time they talk, yeah.
And the question is, if you do recognize and give them the honor to speak, and then this person wants to say something else, you can recognize that person again.
Again.
Right, you can go back, right, it's not, there's no.
So if somebody has to be recognized, that's not considered an interruption of the person speaking?
No, interruption is going to be Councilman A is talking and then Councilman B starts shouting over them, right?
Okay,
Or
so
speak-
yeah,
not even
if you're
doing it
confident that
maliciously,
this,
it's just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
as written,
as the,
I can still manage the meeting?
right.
Okay,
Because it's not an interruption if it's coming from you.
Right.
okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Same page, just explain to me, it's just a question, not, what is an applicant? Only an applicant or designated presenter?
Where are you?
Last paragraph 3 on the same page 2.
So business matter before the council, that
Yes.
would be, for example, an applicant for a special use permit, right?
Gotcha.
So the applicant, or as
They get
often
to present.
happens,
Yeah,
they're,
yeah.
you know,
Okay.
the property owner, they own the property, but maybe they're,
No, I
hired
gotcha.
a developer, and the developer is the one handling,
Right.
they did designated presenter.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all the questions I had. Anybody else? So we'll put this together and have a first reading at the next regular meeting?
I'd like to read, yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right, discussion of the Great Streets Natural Bridge medians. I think everybody knows the challenges we're dealing with here. Had we fixed that median that keeps getting smacked at the circle, it would have cost 20 grand, and it's been smacked 3 times since. So, I think we already, I think the council already agreed to allow Weiss to come in and give us some renderings of what we imagine we can do with it that'll be less expensive. Sam and I had a meeting with MoDOT. They're very receptive to our problem and what we need, and they're ready to work with us. The process for them will be for us to submit an application, a building application basically, to repair the one, for example, we've got 2, maybe 3 that we would submit an application to make a repair, and then that's the process by which they can change what's required. As far as, we've agreed to maintain these to certain specifications. We apply, they waive the specifications, and that's the way they want to see this process run. But what I need from the council is input on what do we do with these medians? What do you want them to be? And I think we're down to either paving them or dirt and grass. Our more expensive is dirt and natives. And I will tell you, I really don't care which way we go with this. I do have a concern about dirt and grass. Mowing is hazardous in that area. You're stopping traffic, you've got guys out there, so that's my only concern with dirt and grass. That is the cheapest option
Yeah, but
versus paving. Do you have, I'm gonna let Dennis opine on what he'd
No,
like to see also.
I agree with you 100%. If we can get away from the dirt and grass, that would be awesome.
The paving is significantly more expensive. We know that.
is it right?
It will be, yeah.
Well, it will be an upfront cost, but then there's virtually no maintenance.
Yeah.
We did receive a little bit of pushback from MoDOT. They're like, well, we'll have to see if that adds too much impervious surface. But I can't imagine that those things are catching that much water anyways.
Well, and if they do come back with that answer, if we recommend paving and they say too much non-porous surface, we'll have the option of grass or a porous pavement
Yeah.
that's available. But I don't think,
Porous
those are
pavement.
precast. You can't pour those. I think you buy those precast, I think. I don't think you can pour a semi-porous
Sure.
product.
But anyways,
I think that is available. I think that's a good idea.
But I think they're precast pads that you cut and fit. I don't think you can pour that type of a product, I think. Do you happen to know?
You can. It's the same material that they used up in the park when they poured it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Where did they use that?
Up in the, on the playground.
On the playground? So
Yeah,
that,
rubberized, yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
poured that,
interesting.
yeah.
well,
They mixed it up and,
Well, and we may not have to address that issue at all. I mean, it may be, if the council chooses to go with paving, that's the building permit we'll submit. If you choose to go with dirt and grass, that's the building permit we'll submit. And from there, they will tell us. Now, you'll see in the renderings, there's these balusters for safety. They won't let us put those in.
balusters.
Yeah, at the crosswalks. Remember, right now, we've got the big planters filled with dirt, which are a lot of protection. So the engineer replaced those with these concrete steel balusters, and MoDOT said, no, we don't want them.
But they have them other places.
I don't know about that. They just gave us a hard no on that.
So we can't
Well,
get this,
down Rock Road, they've got the bales. Wow.
so we can't get this one. So
I
we cannot have this right here on page, it's got a page on it.
oh, I see the one you're looking at right there. You can have everything but the safety balusters. What they said we could put up is reflective.
Oh, right here, okay.
Yeah, we can have that, but the steel and concrete balusters on each corner, they said no. He said you can put up reflective little things that'll flop down if somebody taps them.
I think the city has them. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Well, maybe they changed their mind.
Well, the city might if it's not a state-maintained road. But they're gonna dictate to us what we're allowed to do. So, somebody else join in. What do you like? Go ahead, Tony.
What about around the fountain? You can't put them there either?
That's, I don't know the answer to that. We didn't get a hard answer on that. Sam, what was your recollection of that conversation?
I remember, I said, we have no problem taking them away from the crosswalks, but we may push you on it, specifically on the ones surrounding the fountain. Because as we've seen with the one on North Florissant, I mean, with how fast some of these people come around on Florissant Road, I really do think that dirt and cast stone thing probably has saved the fountain, at least once.
Are
So-
they really willing to repaint the walkway? Update the walkway so it's not,
I think these are gonna be, as they get destroyed, we're gonna address these.
All street striping and marking is their responsibility, and that did come up at the meeting. We brought to their attention that, this contract says that you guys are supposed to be maintaining all the signs,
they're not.
and they haven't been. I said, we'll look into that, we'll send someone out, so. But at this point, I mean, this is just conceptual, it probably won't look like this, but we need to, you know, it will look a little bit different, right? This isn't the real thing. But at this point, we need to get back with an architect or a civil engineer and have them actually draw up specs. And before we go out to bid, we can have the council approve that with rough cost estimates, because right now, I mean, obviously pouring this red stuff in the middle, that's poured stamped concrete, so they pour it and they stamp it, so it kind of looks like a brick type thing, and then they paint it red.
I like the
So-
porous paint.
Or the porous, so, I mean, we can get rough cost estimates on different alternatives. But I don't believe that the council has seen these at all right now, and just looking for some general directions as we go into that conversation.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to have is direction on what the council wants to see those medians be. And I think our options at this point are dirt and grass, paved, or a non-porous
Or a
product
porous.
of some sort.
A porous product.
Yeah, a semi-porous
Right.
concrete pour of some kind. So if we could just get some input. Let me ask this, is anybody leaning toward dirt and grass? Would like to see that, or dirt and natives?
No.
Okay,
I think there's so many accidents, the dirt and natives,
yeah.
they're gonna
Well,
destroy.
can we do this? Let me ask this, can we get the engineer to build specs to submit an application for a poured concrete medians? And if they tell us that there's a problem with the amount of rain, it's all ending up in the same place anyway, even with the semi-porous.
I'd go with porous first, because environmentally, that's gonna be a good decision. What's the care of porous versus concrete?
And I don't know that.
What's
That's-
the lifespan of porous versus concrete?
Well, and what's the cost, so we
Yeah.
can find all that
Yeah,
out.
the cost is
Yeah.
probably higher, but as far as maintenance, zero.
Yeah,
All right. Anybody else have an opinion on that?
What about, you know when you see those poles about maybe 3 feet high,
yeah, that's what the ban.
person hits it, tears their car up,
Right.
doesn't tear up our stuff. I think if we can figure out how we could put maybe 1, 2, 3 poles on each side, so if they turn that corner and they hit the pole, doesn't hit our stuff, tear up our stuff, tears their stuff.
Are you talking about specifically at the fountain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna try that.
We will try, and we may get some pushback on it.
Yeah, they got those
But-
yellow poles, you know, whatever color, whatever.
Yeah, and that's what these are, they're just black.
Yeah, they gotta have some heavy ones.
Yeah, and no, and these are supposed to be heavy, so, they may push back, but I certainly wanna try that at least around the fountain,
Yeah,
because,
I mean, because if they hit, it tears their car up, not our stuff.
exactly.
Yeah, if
But-
somebody hits that fountain, it's just, it
Yeah,
would be
that's what I'm saying.
devastating.
They have their highway standards about fixed objects, which makes you question why they let us put raised planters in the thing.
Yeah.
in
The thing
first
is, you gotta
place.
remember, they have insurance to take care of stuff. We don't have it to take care of stuff.
Well, we do have insurance.
Well, I mean, we don't wanna use our insurance.
Yeah, but we don't wanna use it, yeah.
Yeah, so their insurance and their conglomerate, they're big, we're not. So if we can get them to get the poles in there to protect us,
I agree.
and, you know, if someone runs in there, then they gotta go home with their raggedy car. And we'll probably find out who did it by following the tracks.
Or get more large rocks,
Yeah.
kaboom,
The rocks are too,
I don't know.
That looks actually pretty good. I think that,
Around the
that
pole,
helped a
yeah.
lot, yeah.
Are we talking about like the lamps and the lights around the, or is that another conversation?
No, those lamps are actually, aren't those sitting in the actual mulched portion of it?
Those,
Yeah,
The ones that are left.
the ones that are left, yeah. No, we're talking about the stamped concrete that maybe coming in 5 feet or so and putting those balusters up. So if a big truck needs to make that turn, they're still not gonna tear up their
That
truck.
was on Dennis's report last meeting, and then I think Sam said we'd be discussing the lamps at the workshop, but things changed. So,
yeah, and,
We do have some bids on that, but we're not ready to
Oh.
present
and
anything.
we need to, we may have to check with MoDOT if that needs to be permitted as well. It would probably be a pretty simple permit process, but it's not gonna be something that we're gonna need to get an engineer in on, so,
is Yolanda hearing us?
I believe so.
Yolanda, you good there?
I keep looking at my email,
Oh,
keep looking at
okay.
my email for the agenda, and it cuts me off if I look at it for too long.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we still had a good connection.
I don't know if it's on a timer or something or what.
Okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
Did you get the job description that Sam just sent?
I can't, like, when I look at the email for too long, I read it, the Zoom cuts me off. So I think it might be on a timer.
all
So
right.
that's why I have to keep logging back in. But I'll try. If it cuts me off again, I'll just have to log back in.
Okay. Any further discussion on the Natural Bridge medians, or we've got enough direction, Sam, I think that we can move forward with Weiss and have him put together some specs? And do we have 2 or 3 that we're gonna start off with? As far as approaching MoDOT and for an application?
I think we should get the prices and then kind of make that decision.
Okay, okay.
See what we can afford.
All right. Next item on the agenda, Consolidation Committee report. Sam, I'll let you go ahead and,
Sure. So, I don't know what the council, remembered from last time, but, there's several different things that, we're working on with Glen Echo. A lot of them are fairly administrative, and we're working, towards that, and really no issues so far. But there is, I think the main decision and main thing that the council needs to decide is how, we're going to respond to Glen Echo's request to use all of their remaining, funds, general funds. They want us to consider using that basically within Glen Echo.
I thought we gave the permission that was part of the deal of them.
So,
here's my best recollection. They wanted to, we thought, and they thought they'd have about $40,000 left at the time of consolidation. They wanted to use those dollars for street maintenance. And I think everybody agreed, that's fine, we don't care, it's $40,000. But now it's more dollars than that. I think it's in the neighborhood of 70.
yeah, I think so.
So, do we want to allow them to use their entire $70,000 for projects within only Glen Echo? And it's kind of, the term I used with Sam is their money is their money, and then our money is our money, right? But yeah, what do you want to do with that? I didn't have they have two big trees that need to come out. A year's maintenance on the park they've got in there that can come out of those funds. That sewer swale with the natives, that's about $2,500 a year to maintain that. And then they had, the answer I got to the street assessment question was yes, they've had a street assessment, and yes, they need light resurfacing of their roads. So the question to the council is, do you want to allow them to use their entire fund balance specifically in Glen Echo? Or should we put a limit on what they can use specifically in Glen Echo, and then the rest of it just goes into general fund for the city as a whole? Because they'll be part of our city at that point.
So I know that they've talked about using the counties, to fix homes. Is that still?
That's so unclear. Do you have any better answer on that?
It is very unclear. I will say that the way I look at it, that is a completely separate issue from what we're talking about, so I don't want to get things conflated. But
some of those monies would be going towards fixing the homes,
so no, the monies that they have in their fund are in their bank account. The CDBG monies are in St. Louis's County Community Development's bank account. And it's how I was talking about matching funds earlier. There's matching grants where they give you the money and then you spend it, or reimbursement grants. You spend it and then they give you the money for it. CDBG is not like that. They just spend the money for you. So when we're talking about remaining Glen Echo funds, we were not talking about community development funds. So how they're gonna use their CDBG money, or even if they have CDBG money, it's a separate question. Right now, we're talking about the general fund that they're gonna have left. They want a commitment from us that we're gonna spend all of it in Glen Echo Park.
but also I think they wanted a commitment with the CDBG funds that they were going to, get, estimates and so earmark that money before the merger for these specific projects that are working with St. Louis County and fixing homes. So how does that, but that CDBG money, if there's any left over, does it come to us? I don't, it's fine if they do that, I just wanna understand.
My personal opinion is, I shouldn't say my personal opinion. I would not be surprised if they don't even get their CDBG funds.
Right.
Because they're gonna stop being an entity. And
I don't know.
but apparently, they've been told that they expect to still receive those funds, which would be great. It would be great for Normandy.
I agree.
As a whole, and so I am very hopeful, and whatever restrictions are going to be on that funds, I don't know. There's
Well, I
so
will
much
say this, there's
unclear
been no
about it.
money awarded, and there's been no resolution or ordinance as to how those funds are gonna be spent. So that's where we're at.
And my understanding is those are 2025 funds.
Well, they part of Normandy then. They
Yeah,
part of Normandy, so
It doesn't
we
matter.
deal with this $70,000 and then we go from there.
Right, that's-
Because all this money should have been,
Yeah.
if we
I-
go, we should have had all this, they should have had all that in black and white before we voted on the merger. So now they wanna say, well, this is our money, okay, we can go with that now. We just settled the garbage thing the last time, right? What they paid.
They're gonna maintain their own garbage
They're
service.
gonna maintain the garbage,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so we don't have to worry about
No.
that. So as far as the merger, we deal with the $70,000, anything after that, man, that's part of Normandy as a whole, because they're part of Normandy.
Right, so alternative, I think two reasonable alternatives is, I mean, we can just give them what they're requesting, because the tree work, street work, and whatever else they wanna get done is gonna eventually need to be done as part of Normandy. Or we say, okay, we hear that you wanna use all your funds, but we'll agree to use this, and this totaling up to 50,000 or 60,000. But then the rest, it's gonna go towards this, general fund reserve, street improvement fund, or just
I think the original was to let them use the money.
Yeah, do we even
I thought that we initially had a conversation when this happened about letting them use their money for when Vicky was at one of our workshops. She specifically said that she wanted to use the money that they had in their coffer for projects that they had earmarked.
Yeah,
That, your recollection is correct, and at that time, she was under the impression that it was gonna be about 40 grand. Now, do we care whether it's 40 or 7 is the question presented to the council? Do we want them, do we have any objection with them using their money?
okay,
And
and
they're-
that's fine,
So this is,
Go ahead, Yolanda. Go ahead.
so this is money that they've already acquired, that's already in their bank account, that's already been,
Earmarked to them.
I'm sorry, is he saying something?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So they already have these funds sitting in their account?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right. Is everybody in agreement?
What's the, are we taking a vote? Are you asking us for a vote?
No, we're not, we don't need to vote. We just want to make sure there's no objection to the plan that's being presented by them, that they use those funds.
Oh, okay.
And that we dedicate those funds to projects. Part of them not getting this work done is it's Vicky being sick last year and not being able to do the job that she needed to do. So they got money sitting in the bank and projects that should have been done that didn't get done. And so they'd like that money dedicated to specific projects, which are 2 big trees taken down, park maintenance, and a light resurfacing of the roads. Is that accurate, Sam?
that's my understanding, but just to clarify, like, we will bring either a resolution or an ordinance clarifying, earmarking exactly how much money they have and what it's gonna be used for.
Can you also ask her, there was an accident on Lucas and Hunt that knocked down some pillars that were owned by Glen Echo. Is that part of the project?
I think they're still trying to, I think they're getting bids for that. That may be done before the consolidation, but if not, then whatever the list is, it's gonna be what they request. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's gonna be on there or not, but I think they're working on that right now.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd like that to be on the list. 'cause
Yeah, I'd like that.
yeah,
to be
I would like that to be on the list. 'Cause that looks really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, it looks really bad when you drive up Lucas and Hunt and like when you go, like, cause it just looks really bad.
Okay.
I would like that to be on the list if they could pay for that.
Yeah, good. All right. Moving forward. Last item in the agenda is discussion of the 24-1 Transportation Development District. If you'll remember, back in March or April, the council approved a resolution supporting a development district, a transportation development district for the footprint of the 24-1 communities. And that didn't obligate us to do anything. It just gave us a seat at the table to say, okay, what's this gonna look like? Sam and I have attended monthly meetings since that time. We've been to about 5 or 6 meetings. And this thing has taken shape. Not exactly the way I'd like to have seen it take shape. But I need guidance from the council as to what, if you're receptive to this thing, what do you want it to look like? And is it something you're still on board with? So where we're at, I'd like to see, this is gonna develop or generate some money, more money to Normandy than if we passed our own 1% tax, because we don't have a lot of development and sales tax in the city of Normandy. So for us to join with this community this group of communities that wants to create this district, it will generate more money to Normandy again than if we passed a 1% sales tax. However, there's a real push to use a significant portion of this money for new projects. And those new projects will be determined by a vote of mayors. I'm concerned about that. You read my email and my concerns and how that's gonna work out. I think we have to determine what's the breaking point? What are we willing to allow to go to new projects if you're interested in this transportation district tax? At what point do we say, nope, we can't agree to that? Right now, the mayor's voted to have up to a third of this for new projects with a vote of the mayor's. And I really have a problem with a third of this tax generated going to new projects that who knows where they're gonna go, versus just equally distributing the money for maintenance.
Yeah, I agree.
There's goods and bads, and I need some direction from the council, and any questions you might wanna ask away. Where are we going? I don't wanna hold down this TDD and stop it or change it significantly if you're not gonna support it anyway. If you're not gonna support it, then let them do what they wanna do, and we're right in the middle of it. So if we're not a part of it, it's probably gonna be 3 separate transportation districts.
It probably just won't happen,
It probably won't happen
which
realistically.
does give us significant leverage at the table.
Well, the fact that they're not doing it by population and you have one vote versus.
Well, that I'm sure would change. I've gotten some feedback from that, and I could get that rule changed. So, the real concern, when I talked to Chris Krameyer, is his focus is on new projects. He's definitely interested in new projects. I'm not interested at all in new projects. I think we could burn that money for 20 years just maintaining the streets that we have. Now, if 15% of it goes to new projects, which I told him is kind of my limit, if 15% of it were spent, if it were spent frivolously, like wasted, we would still get more money, I believe, being a member of this transportation district, than if we passed our own 1% sale. I think it would still be to our benefit, but
And
go
I'll
ahead.
also say, we can't pass another 1% sales tax. We have passed, I believe Normandy has all the taxes that state statute allows for a municipality in St. Louis County. So what we're talking, you do need to consider, I mean, a 1 cent sales tax does mean that everyone here and all our residents will be paying 1 cent more, whenever they go out and spend money. So, there is the cost of the sales tax, but I just do want to point that out. Like,
Yep.
it's not like we say no to this and then we go, okay, we're going to pass our own 1% sales tax, because it's not like that. The way that they're constructing this TDD, it's almost like a way to add another sales tax that otherwise wouldn't be allowed, and it would basically be pooled between members of the 24-1.
And that's wholly separate from any existing sales tax that
Yeah,
we have.
the sales tax would not go to the city of Normandy, it would go to this new political subdivision called the Transportation Development District.
Okay.
And then, right now, and this is what we're talking about, is then how does the money get dispersed from the Transportation Development District? And we're trying to argue that, I mean, I think it would be great if the whole thing was just, it was allocated by street mile. You'd say, hey, I've got this project, you apply, as long as it's not above your street mile, annual threshold limit, you get the money. But again, there's the other side of it, and it's the special projects. And the special project is not defined. We go to these meetings, we ask, what's the special project? They just stare at you blankly.
So basically, what you're saying is, we sign and get with the program, because I mean, they've been trying to do this for 10 years, I recall. Getting with Beyond Housing, the 24-1, there's 40-some thousand people in this footprint. Now, there's money's gonna go into the till, lots of money. Now, how much goes to Normandy, we really don't know, and we got one vote.
Well, I'm confident I can change
And
that.
see, I think this may answer some of your questions. So where we're at, and we actually made it a little bit of headway on this issue at the last meeting, but there's a petition that goes before the judge approves it, then it goes to a vote of the people. And then what they wanted to do was then work out all the details afterwards, after, you know, we're already married.
Right.
So,
And
we're,
you still don't know how much
we
it's
made,
gonna be
we made
hands
some
on.
headway I think it was last week. Basically, we wanna work out the details beforehand. And so, we're waiting on someone said that they wanted it to be a one-pager, someone said they wanted it to be a three-pager. I think it's probably gonna be a little bit longer if we're gonna sign it.
Right.
And we're gonna work out all these details so that it's worth it for us, and they're gonna, and one of the questions is, you know, what does it cost Normandy? It costs us a sales tax, and then also, you know, we could potentially pursue a transportation development district ourselves, and we could pursue it, let's say we wanted a Natural Bridge TDD, and then we went all the way down Natural Bridge. We could do that as well, and then the special project would be Natural Bridge. But, so there is some, you know, opportunity cost there, but.
Let me add a little bit as to how this would proceed. If the council's interested in moving forward with this, and we're gonna wait till after the details are hammered out, we would pass an ordinance joining this TDD. Okay, once we pass that ordinance to join the TDD, and any other municipality, correct me if I'm wrong, that passes it to join it, they're gonna take a vote to create this TDD, at which point it'll be out of the hands of Normandy alone. It's gonna be a vote of the entire district. So if everybody in Normandy voted against it, it could still pass.
Right.
So, go ahead, Debbie.
But there are municipalities that are not involved.
There
St.
is.
John, there's like
Bellry
five.
Bakers has not joined in.
St. John has not joined in.
Yeah,
They weren't in our
Well,
first.
they're not in the 34
Well, no, so they have invited St. John, they said no, but again, they're barely in the school district.
Right.
Charlac's the same deal.
Oh, I see.
But I think the only people who are out is Bell Ridge.
Oh,
Right.
And,
why, wow, anyway.
and they actually generate some sales tax, so that kind of,
Right.
that hurts. But, apparently they've made headway in Cool Valley and Bellry Bakers, and then, the other person who's out, from my understanding, is also Hillsdale.
You're right.
Yes, you're right, you're right.
Yep, Hillsdale's not in.
'Cause the last
But,
3
which is
months they-
interesting, because then it splits the map, so basically, if we don't join, it doesn't.
Yeah, Philsdale's out, and then Normandy has to be in, otherwise Northwoods, Pine Lawn, Pasadena, everything.
Yeah,
kind of
it would split the
northeast
east,
corner is
east to
is
west.
isolated.
Right.
The
Yeah,
whole district has to be
A little
contiguous.
Mason Dixon, yeah.
If Hillsdale was in, then they could just bypass us and do a big U
Yeah.
around Normandy.
yeah, so that's the leverage that we're talking about there. But,
So they need
I
that.
mean, there's also,
They've been needing this for 10 years. They've been trying to do this thing.
Yeah, but they should have more information.
Yeah.
If they've been trying to do this for 10 years and you still don't have all the information
Especially
on
for special
the
projects.
special projects,
Yeah.
all this, that stuff should all be clear cut,
well,
period.
I'm not sure when the TDD, I know that they've been looking at a lot of different projects. I get the impression that the TDD came up in the past, couple of years.
Okay.
But they have had attorneys who have worked on this a long time, and who've done a lot of work on it.
They're usually working with, I think it's Rob Clark with,
Yeah.
Armstrong Teasdale.
Yeah, Clark.
He does a lot of work with them.
Yeah.
Well, it
So the
sounds like you've got
disbursement's
a
gonna be
good-
based on,
You know Clark?
either lane mile population or some formula of those two combined is how that's going to be dispersed.
Well, it sounds like you're representing us, so just keep us informed and then when we.
Well, and again, I just wanted some direction from you and bring you up to speed to where we're at right now. Right now, I'm inclined, I'm still at the table, I'm okay with it, because, at 15%, if they flushed it down the toilet, Normandy would still benefit more than if we had that tax, which you're telling me we can't anyway. But it's still to our benefit. When you go beyond the 15%, which is, they'd like the flexibility to do that years down the road with the vote of the mayors, you know, if you get up to a third of it going to new projects, in my mind, we don't need new projects. We need to put everything that we have back in shape. So it's just a difference of goals. I have one goal, a lot of the other mayors have a different goal. They want to see some new projects and some new things happen. So we may not, we're just not on the same pages as to our end goal, but there may be room for compromise there.
So what
So,
is your letter that you send them, are they gonna interpret that as you're pulling out, or?
I got a phone call about 2 minutes after I sent it. So, I explained to Chris at Beyond Housing, I'm still here, I'm still at the table. And I actually said, I know I'm taking a hard-ass approach here, but I have to make sure it's right, you know.
Well, Mayor, they were trying to do this years ago, consolidate services. Of course, it couldn't happen because we have different codes, different areas.
Well, the consolidate services portion of it, we didn't get involved in. There was another attempt,
Right.
and I don't know where that's at, to put together a public works district. I
Right.
wasn't interested from the start on that. So,
Well, this
the only
is-
thing we're talking about is a transportation district tax.
Right.
The money's coming back to the city, a portion of it being flexible, discretionary, that we vote on how that's used. Is everybody still in the position where this is something to continue with? All right, we'll stay at the table then,
Yeah, stay at the table, see how it comes out.
all right?
Get the information.
Good, thank you. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session to discuss a real estate issue. We have a motion, is there a second? Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yeah.
Councilman Evans?
Yes.
Councilman Horn?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
That's what he says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, we should schedule our next meeting or not.
Schedule a workshop?
I'm suggesting I would very much like to take a break in December. Our workshop falls right around Christmas.
Be the 28th December.
I don't mind taking a month off from workshop and then going back to work in January.
Yeah, do we have anything that's pressing?
No, if we do, I could call a meeting. Is everybody good with that?
So
I'm
move.
good with it.
Yeah.
All right. We don't need a motion or anything, I just won't call the meeting.
And we're doing
And
it-
apologies
we're
for
doing
being late, everyone. I'm sorry about that. My calendar, yeah, things
it- Are
are.
we doing,
We're going into closed session.
And who's talking?
Are we okay
We can just
here?
do it in here.
I thought we had a
Close out.
audio issue.
Well, I thought that was resolved.
Okay, well, good.